Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Midshipman 4th Class Lussier, and today I'm going to be briefing you on the Navy's hypersonic future, and more specifically, their joint efforts with the U.S. Army to develop and eventually use a hypersonic weapon. Here's a quick outline of what I'm going to be teaching you today. First, I'm going to go over the weapon itself, what it means, why it's so effective, and how it works. Then I'm going to move into the U.S. program and the specifics of how the Army and Navy are working together to accomplish this feat. Then I'm going to go into recent testing conducted by the Pentagon, Navy research and how they are approaching designing this weapon. I'm going to give you a timeline of events of where the Navy's been and where they're going in the future with this project, and then how it applies to us as midshipmen. So what does hypersonic mean? I, for one, had no idea what this word meant when I first started researching this project. I'd never seen the word before. It's okay if you haven't, because I'm going to teach it to you right now. Hypersonic speeds are speeds much greater than the speed of sound. So if you don't know, Mach 1 is the speed of sound, and Mach 5 is 5 times the speed of sound, So these weapons travel at 5 times the speed of sound and above. 5 times the speed of sound is just the minimum. And to give you some perspective on that, Mach 5 is right around 3,800 miles per hour. So these things are just hauling through the air. Very lethal, very effective. Now, the purpose of these weapons, for one, is to more effectively combat ballistic missile defense systems, and then secondly, to annihilate targets as fast as possible. Because these weapons are so fast, agile, and maneuverable, they're more effective than anything we've seen in the military thus far in history. Now, the basic makeup of the weapon, it has 2 big parts: the glide body and the booster. So the glide body is where your warhead is and your electronics. Then the booster is basically the rocket strapped to it that makes it go through the air. Now, like I said, the Army and the Navy are working together on this project. It's not like the football game where we're all hating on each other the rest of the school year. Yes, we are on one team and we're working together to accomplish this feat. So they've kind of broken up the responsibilities into 2 main fields. The Navy is handling the design portion to start. So they're testing, researching, prototyping, getting the design set for this weapon. The Army, on the other hand, is leading the production. So just recently, in August 2019, they signed a $350 million contract with Dynetics Technical Solutions, and they're going to be the contractor that's going to produce and develop this weapon for the U.S. military. And eventually, once this weapon is deployable and it's sent around the world where it needs to go, it will allow the U.S. to strike anywhere in the world within an hour. So, something happens around the world, we're there on it, less than an hour. And that's going to allow the U.S. military to be a lot more lethal and a lot more effective when we need to be. So I have a quick video of the most recent test from the Pentagon that was conducted in Hawaii. I'm going to play it here. The quality is probably going to be pretty bad, so I encourage you to go into my slides and watch it. Let's see if I can get it up here. Yikes. And again, my apologies on the quality there. So, just literally a few days ago, 19 March 2020, approximately 22:30 at night, at the Pacific Missile Range facility in Hawaii, the Pentagon conducted the second test of this weapon. Now, like I said earlier, we've got the 2 main parts of the hypersonic weapon, the glide body and the booster. So for this, the Navy used their previously designed common hypersonic glide body, the CHGB for short, and then for a booster, we used a Polaris A3. The test was successful. However, the Pentagon is not releasing the distance which it traveled before reaching its target. It's undisclosed. And you'll find that a lot of specific information on this project is undisclosed because it's such a high-profile weapon and because it's not exactly developed yet. The Pentagon's being pretty secretive about what's going on. As for prior testing, like I said, the one that happened on 19 March was the second. The first happened in October 2017, and that's where the Navy really nailed down the design for the Common Hypersonic Glide Body, the CHGB. During the test, it sustained a hypersonic glide at target distances and, of course, was deemed successful. And they nailed down the design for the CHGB being that the glide body will contain the warhead and the guidance system, or the electronics. So the boom and the electronics that guides it to where it needs to go, like the tracking beacon. Here's a quick quotation I found from Vice Admiral Johnny Wolf. He's the Director of Strategic Systems Programs for the Navy, and this is what he had to say after the test on 19 March. Today we validated our design and are now ready to move to the next phase towards fielding a hypersonic strike capability. So, as the Vice Admiral kind of conveys here, the design is set after this test. We've had 2 successful tests in a row and a lot of research and design that has gone into this project. Now, the glide body pretty much set, and it's time for the Navy to move on to the next stage of designing this weapon. And with that design comes research, right? Because the Navy doesn't want to just design something without putting any research into it. This is a really expensive project, so they want to make sure this is picture perfect. So they're really taking the time to do the proper research, all the prototyping they need to do to make sure that this is as lethal as possible. Now, for fiscal year 2021, for the Navy's budget, they're requesting $1 billion specifically for the research and development of the hypersonic weapon, putting a lot of money into developing this thing. The Navy also recently decided that this weapon is going to first be deployed on the Virginia-class submarine. So, we got a Virginia-class right here with the Virginia payload. That's going to include the hypersonic weapon once it is produced. Now, you may be wondering, this is an Army-Navy joint project, right? Well, if we're launching, how can we launch the same weapon out of a submarine that we're doing on land if it has to go through water? Good question, and the Navy is developing their own booster because of that. So, the Army and the Navy are going to be using the same exact glide body, so same warhead, same electronics, but the Navy is making a different booster that will allow the weapon to be launched out of the water, whereas the Army just has to launch it from land, of course, because they don't have submarines. So I put together a timeline here of where the Pentagon's been and where they're going in the future. I'm going to go over it real quick just to give you a kind of refresher and put together how this has played out and where the Navy wants to go. So we started in October 2017. That was where Flight Experiment 1 took place. It was successful, and that was the first major test of the weapon. Fast forward to August 2019. That's where the Army signed the $350 million contract with Dynetics Technical Solutions for the production of the weapon. Now we go to March 2020. A few days ago on the 19th, the Pentagon conducted their second successful test out in Hawaii, reached an undisclosed distance, but was deemed successful. Now, going into the future now, fiscal year 2021, the Navy is requesting $1 billion specifically for the research and development of the weapon. Now, like I've said a few times now, the Navy and the Army and the Pentagon in general are being really secretive about this project because it's so new. We can assume in the early 2020s there's going to be more testing, more research. Just the design process is what the Navy is going through right now. But they don't have any set dates. It's pretty loose, and no one outside of the project knows what's going on pretty much. So we kind of just have to wait and see what happens there. But they're aiming for fiscal year 2028 as their end date. So by fiscal year 2028, the plan is for this weapon is going to be produced. It's going to be on the Virginia-class subs and ready to go at a moment's notice. So that's the end game right now. We'll see if that date holds true and if the Navy and the Army can meet that timeline or not. How does this apply to us? You may be saying, we're just fourth class, this is some random weapon, it doesn't really matter that much. But you're wrong. Now we're commissioning, hopefully, in 2023. Seems like it's a long way away, but it's really not. It's a lot closer than we think. And it's important for us as midshipmen to start developing an understanding and awareness of fleet technology now, so that when we get out to the fleet as officers, we're not surprised by any weaponry or technology that we encounter. We know exactly what we're going to be dealing with. And who knows, some of us might even be working with these weapons once we reach the fleet. I'm going to end you on this. Like the CO said in the drill period coming back from winter break, be ready for war. And part of being ready for war is understanding our current fleet technology and what the Navy wants to do in the future. Here are my references. There's a few good USNI articles in there. I encourage you to go back and read those. If you have any questions, feel free to text me or email me or put a comment up on Blackboard. I'd be happy to answer your questions. Thank you.